Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Community Connection. My name is Carol Spicer, owner of Spicer Facilitation and Learning. Very pleased to welcome Mr. Brent Decker, who is an Economic Development Officer with the Department of
Industry, Energy, and Technology.
There you go. I forgot what the E was for.
A brand new name.
Brand new name. Brent is very graciously agreed to my peer pressure of please come on and present for me. And he's going to talk a little bit about proposal writing today. And from all his reputation, he's a great guy at doing this work. So I reached out to him to bring him on with us today. Before I get started, no pressure. Before I get started, I'd just like to do a brief land acknowledgement. I'm coming to you from the beautiful community of Pasadena, which is on the unceded territory of the Beothuk/Mi'kmaq, depending which maps you look at. But I do ask that you take a moment to reflect on where you are joining us from today. And perhaps over in the chat, you could just say a quick hello and maybe let us know what community you are in. That will let Brent know who we have on the line. So chat is, you just go down through your control panel there and click on the little plus next to the word chat, and you can jump in and say hello. So in order to preserve some of the bandwidth and stability, Brent and I are going to turn off our cameras now in just a moment. I'll just let him say a few words of welcome, and then we're going to, he's going to run through his presentation. And when we're finished the presentation piece, we'll stop the recording, and then we'll open it up for questions and then an opportunity for you folks to network. So that's kind of what we're at for today.
Quick question.
Yes.
Should I mute myself? Because or is this going to be interactive, or do you want us to just type? Excuse me.
You can open up your mic at any time. I think Brent will kind of direct us through on that. And we might even have a couple polls. We might have a couple little things for you to try to do.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I like Brent? This. I'd like this to be very much a discussion with as opposed to a talking to. No one likes being talked to, but people like being talked with. So yeah, there's I guess, right off the top, very much thanks very much to Carol and Spicer Facilitation for engaging me with this. I guess this was back, early pandemic. Carol reached out about doing this type of session, and she wanted to do it over the summer. And I said, let's hold off to the fall. Well, hopefully we'll be in a better place and get past all the vacation piece and that type of thing. So we've scheduled it for today, obviously, and moving forward. So I guess the proposal writing that we're going to look at today is very much, as I've said on the title slide there, hopefully that you can see. Can everyone see the slides?
Yes, there's one slide now.
One slide, yeah, okay. So as it says, it's very much today is very much a teaser. It's like the movie trailer. Typically, proposal writing that we've done through our community capacity building program is a full 8-hour day in a room, interactive. We look at proposals, we evaluate them. So we can't do any of that today, obviously, in the time frame that we have, and obviously in some of the restrictions that we have. So today is very much a teaser, and we're going to talk about kind of hit the treetops, if you will. We're going to be at the 30 or the 130,000 foot level about proposal writing. And like I said, yeah, I really want this to be a discussion based on some of the information that we'll provide. So as Carol said, we're going to turn off our cams. Let me see if I can figure out how to do that. Stop sharing my webcam. Okay, so my camera's gone? Yep.
Yep.
And the slides are still there. Excellent. Yep. Okay, so as with any good training, what is our learning objectives? We're gonna, again, we're typically in an 8-hour day, we would go into these in a little more depth. We're gonna talk about proposal writing a little bit today, some of your experiences with proposal writing, link it to strategic planning, which might not seem obvious, but I think is very important. Talk a little bit about research, and just talk about the topic of research. When you're writing a proposal, linking it to what are the program criteria. Talk a little bit about partnering, both in terms of multiple funding sources and or multiple partners coming together looking for funding. And then we'll get into a little bit of the meat. Again, just a tease about the formatting and the particular content of what would go in a proposal. And then, like I said, we'll open up to discussion. That'll be enough of hearing me drone on, and then we can hear from you and some of your real live questions and challenges and experiences and those types of things. So what is a proposal? Carol, what's our first poll that we have? What people's experience with proposals?
How many proposals have you written in the last 6 months?
Okay, so we'll come to that one. Just so what is a proposal? Just so if you want to quickly type in your definition of a proposal in a couple of lines, or even if you want to jump on the mic and just give me a, in 10 words or less, what do you think a proposal is? To kind of give us a sense of where everyone is.
I mean, it's not when my husband asked me to marry him. Ha ha
ha. Well, that is a type of proposal. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, what I get from a proposal is you're giving somebody information to receive something.
Okay, yeah, that's a good definition.
You've got over in chat, Brent, a written document offering info.
Okay, am I supposed to see that? Oh, okay, that scrolls down.
I'll speak, but maybe better. It's better. That was me.
Okay, so that's good. So what is a proposal? I guess the formal definition is a request. And again, I guess the other thing to keep in mind with this presentation is obviously as a government employee, this is coming from the perspective of a funding agency who receives lots of proposals, all types and sizes and variations. So anything we talk about today is kind of coming from a government perspective, but a lot of that is going to apply to no matter where the source of funding would be it a philanthropic group or a private investor or whatever the case may be. So, but essentially a proposal is a request for financial assistance to implement a project. So something that you want to do and you don't have the money to do it and you're looking for someone else to help fund that.
Mm-hmm.
So funding can come from, like I said, a bunch of different sources. Government is always a popular one, charitable foundations, other businesses, individuals, other sources. Good proposal is a result of a planning process and provides the organizations with the resources to accomplish those goals. So like I said, it's fundamentally about knowing what it is you want to do and how you're going to go about doing it in its simplest form. So we mentioned there's different types of proposals. So maybe we'll jump in the poll here, Carol.
Okay.
Carol's got a poll prepared in terms of experience with proposals, what types and how many and that type of thing. So Carol, you're gonna have to talk through how to do this.
Yeah, we're just playing here now. So there's a quick poll has just come up in front of you. How many proposals have you written in the past 6 months? And so you just click a little radio button and click submit.
All right, does everyone see that? Because I don't see it. I don't need to see it.
Yes, it's there.
It's there. You won't see it because you're an organizer.
Okay.
Or you're a presenter, I guess.
Okay.
And I think everyone has voted because you and I don't vote, so. Now, let's click on close and see what happens. And so it looks like what I'm seeing, I don't see how, oh, share. There we go. Haha, we're playing here now. Done. So Brent, they're in the right spot.
Okay, so we have no experience with writing proposals, preparing and submitting a proposal. Okay, excellent. Well then this is, as you say, we're in the right spot. Yeah, absolutely. So typically the different types of proposals that we see would be kind of research proposals, training proposals. So, as an organization, if you're doing different types of training, planning in terms of where you are and where you want to go. You often see technical proposals, and sometimes we'll deal with organizations or large municipalities that are doing capital projects. So again, when you're building hospitals and those types of things, again, they would all take some sort of proposal. And that's the other thing to keep in mind is that depending on the project that you're implementing is going to impact the size and the nature of the proposal that you're going to write. Obviously, for something that's very quick and simple and has a small budget and not a lot of not a lot of demands. The level and complexity of your proposal is going to be a lot less than, for example, the new hospital that's being built here in Cornerbrook. I remember when that was going through that process. I think it was Minister Byrne at the time tweeted a picture of the proposals that they had received. I think there was 2 bids, and there were literally boxes and boxes and boxes on his desk of documents and technical drawings and budgets and again, that, and in its simplest form, it was a proposal to carry out that work. So it is very wide ranging. So a good proposal, again, from a government perspective, is going to have something that's going to provide an economic benefit to your area, to your community, to your stakeholder group, whatever the case may be. It's going to address a strategic priority, and we'll get into that in just a little bit in terms of what's your strategic plan for your organization, and does your projects, do your proposals line up with that? You also got to demonstrate that there's a need for financial assistance. Show that something is economically viable and sustainable. A lot of people use those 2 words interchangeably. I think they're connected, but they're distinct. Something is viable. I like to think of that as, can you get it off the ground? Can you get it started? And sustainable is, can you keep it off the ground? Can you keep it going? And like I said, while they're linked, they're not necessarily the same thing. And a good proposal is also going to have a lot of stakeholder support. It's not going to be just my ideas. It's going to be the community that I work with, or I'm trying to help or try to support. They have some input into it as well. And it's also, again, from a government perspective, what it is that you're proposing to do has to be consistent with government policy. That seems kind of obvious, but we don't always see things that line up.
Brent, can I just jump in there for a sec?
You go ahead.
I was just going to think of the example when I was starting up. I connected with you about, okay, what's out there? Is there funding available? And that was one of the things you ran me through, saying, okay, do you do this? Nope. Do you do this? Nope. Do you do this? Nope. Okay, guess you're not qualified. And it was a hard thing to hear, right? But
yeah.
I wasn't one of the emerging technologies or or industries, right? It wasn't meeting a certain thing. So I think that's an important piece. Like that kind of shocked me, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, to be very specific, right? So within our department and the funding programs that we have, we have a very focused set of criteria in terms of who we can and who we can't support, from a growing the economy perspective to a not impacting competitive impact perspective. So there's a bunch of different policies that exist that we've got to be aware of when we're making those investments. And again, any program, so that's at the provincial level within our department. Another department within government that might have some funding would have a different set of criteria, a different set of policies. Or if you go to a federal agency, again, they're going to have a different set as well. And then when you move into community groups or charitable organizations or whatever, again, they're all going to have their own policies and those types of things that you need to be aware of. And again, that's a good proposal that you're preparing is going to line up with those. Otherwise, you're sort of wasting your time. And like to your point, Carol, as hard as it was to hear that, no, probably you're not going to fit our programming. I think, and again, that's probably why I did it, is that it's much better to tell you that up front than to go along for 6 or 8 or 10 months and then at the end of the day say, oh, and by the way, guess what? You don't qualify. That wouldn't be of much support. That would be probably
absolutely, yeah.
Any questions?
It was hard to hear, but it was good.
Any questions with that?
No, pretty clear.
A lot of that is pretty common sense, but sometimes you need to see it or be refreshed on it. So a good proposal. Oh, I'm in the wrong screen here. There we go. So before you begin writing that proposal, it's really important to know your audience. So who are you writing the proposal for? Really, really important to understand that. And again, what is their organization all about, and what kind of projects do they fund or have they funded in the past? Having that knowledge around your audience. It's also really important to know yourself, your own organization, your own business. Having a clear understanding of your identity, what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, and being able to show that you've got some experience, you've got that credible track record, if you want to call it that. Again, that's going to be really important for the person who's reading the proposal to know that you not only do you say you can do it, but you've got the experience or knowledge or proof that you've done it before. And again, it's really important to demonstrate that you've got a plan in order to address this need that you've identified. So all of that kind of leads to strategic planning. And a lot of people say, strategic planning? I thought we were going to learn about proposal writing. What's strategic planning got to do with it? Well, excuse me, I'll take a quick drink there. I think strategic planning has got everything to do with proposal writing, in the sense that if you don't know your organization and what you're trying to accomplish, then the likelihood of doing things that are going to help accomplish it, I mean, you might randomly fall into something that's going to work there, but chances are, if you don't have a good solid plan, then the likelihood of being successful is a lot less diminished. I'm often reminded of the Alice in Wonderland. Most people have heard of or remember Alice in Wonderland. I've got the young kids, so it's something that I'm quite familiar with. But in one scene in Alice in Wonderland, or in the book or in the movie, Alice asks the Cheshire Cat, which way should I go? And the cat says, well, where do you want to end up? And Alice says, I don't really care where I end up. So the cat replies, well, then it really doesn't matter which way you go. And while it's a simple story, it's very, very important for business people, for not-for-profit organizations, for governments in some respect, to have a good sense of where it is that you want to end up. So in that respect, the strategic plan is very much in its simplest form, because again, strategic planning can be a full day or a full week course. But strategic planning, from my perspective, in its simplest form is, where are we as an organization? Where are we going? How are we going to get there? How are we going to know when we've arrived? And that's kind of the success, and that's one that's often gets overlooked. And linking it to proposal writing is the projects that we're doing, do they align with those plans? So if you don't know where you're going as an organization, you won't, the projects that you might end up doing may or may not advance your organization to get to that point that you're trying to get to. So it's really important. Again, it's not something that is obvious, but I think it's really important to have a good, for any organization to have a good strategic plan. Call it a business plan, call it a strategic plan, call it whatever you want. At the end of the day, if you don't know where you're going, you don't know how you're going to get there, the chances of stumbling blindly and landing in the right spot, like I said, it could happen. It has happened, I'm sure, but it's a lot less likely to happen. The other thing about strategic planning is that most organizations have limited resources, limited financial resources, limited human resources, or even limited technical resources in some cases. So because of the limited resources, you want to use them most efficiently and effectively as you can. So that really becomes a point of making sure that the limited resources that we have, that we're using them in a priority manner and using them the best way that's going to make, using it most effectively to accomplish our goals. And again, that goes back to, if you don't know what those goals are, you're probably going to just waste any of those resources that you might have. Slow me down if I'm going too fast or if this doesn't make any sense. So like I said, we're touching on the treetops. So that's strategic planning, typically a full day. The other thing about proposal writing is, I mentioned off the top, was in terms of doing research. So any good proposal should be well researched. It shouldn't be something that, and we often see all kinds of things that come into the office, from the very well professionally prepared, consultant, accounting firm prepared, to the boys got together Friday night and and they came up with the greatest idea. And as they say on VSM, alcohol may have been a factor. So it's not always the greatest stuff. So it's important to do your, I like to say, do your homework. And again, that goes back to, business planning, like I said, strategic planning, whatever you want to call it, but do your homework. When you're presenting it in a proposal in a written, structured format, again, asking somebody for money, it's important that you do your homework right. So I always tell my kids that practice makes permanent, because most people say practice makes perfect. Well, no, practice doesn't make perfect, practice makes permanent. Because if you do something wrong over and over and over, you're not going to be perfect at it, you're going to know how to do it wrong. So it's important to practice it so that you do it right. So what I'm talking about here is in terms of the methodology. So again, if you're doing surveys, so the two different types of research, primary research, secondary research. Again, we're not going to get into a lot of the details of those today, but primary research is essentially you are the first person to see the answers or the data that you're gathering. So that's done through surveys, through face-to-face discussions, through a bunch of different formats. Secondary research is that you are not the first person to see the results of that data. You're the second or the third or the 5,000th, depending on what it is. So that would be stuff from other journals, from reports, from census data, from whatever the case may be. When you kind of go to the library or to the internet, I guess is probably where people go more now than they go to the library to get that secondary data. And it's important also when you're doing research is who you are researching from. So again, it goes back to the audience and again leads to the credibility of that proposal that you're preparing. So your proposal, when as part of that communication, is demonstrate what you're attempting to accomplish. So what is the project? Why am I doing it? What is it we're going to accomplish once it's done? What is the problem we're going to address? How are we the solution provider to this issue that we've identified? What resources are required? Again, from a human resource, financial resource, and technical resource perspective. And when and how will it be done? So that really comes down to your implementation. So now we're talking project management, which again, people say, I thought this was about proposal writing. But when you're doing projects, it becomes a project management thing. And Carol can tell you, she's probably forgotten more about project management than a lot of us will know. But having those timelines, having those budgets, all that type of stuff is really important in that proposal to demonstrate that this is what we're going to do, this is how we're going to do it.
Yeah. Brent, one of the things there on the who, that just made me think of, like, Wikipedia is not a good source, right, to be quoting.
Yeah, probably not.
But there are some decent, and we won't take up too much time here, but there are some decent sources, right? There's some business community resources, and there's
absolutely
well respected, and that's where you would recommend people go to, right? Is looking
completely. I've always been a big proponent of, and Carol, you might have heard me say this before, is if you want expert advice, talk to experts. So, right, if you're starting up a business or doing a project that's in the veterinary world, well, then you should probably talk to the Veterinary Association, or at least a vet. So yeah, like I said, that the who is really, really important. Like I said, it leads to the credibility.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, and right. So if you're doing something from a business perspective, there's, I guess, in terms of the online resources, the Canada Business Network, which is an online, essentially a business library, and they can provide you with a wealth of a lot of that secondary information, depending on what it is that you're looking at doing. So
the other one I was thinking is like Conference Board of Canada. Often has some free resources and articles and documents. They usually do an economic outlook document, which is, I think would be a credible source because that's what they do for a living.
Who was that?
Right.
What would you say was that?
Conference Board of Canada.
Conference Board of Canada. Thank you.
Yeah. And then the business network that Brent talked about, I know I looked at them when I was doing my original startup plan.
Yeah, and I guess when you go online looking for information, be a little wary. So again, anything online, just because it's online doesn't make it true. As Carol said, Wikipedia might not be your best source of information. Sometimes the information is grand, but sometimes it's not. So you got to kind of look at it with a little bit of skepticism. But also, especially, we hear this from all the time from potential entrepreneurs that are starting up stuff. I was on a website and they'll send me this information. They'll send me this book, this manual that of all the funding programs that exist, and it's only $250. And I was like, oh my God. While it's probably true, they probably will send you a book, and it's probably information that you can find yourself or find for free in a place like the Canada Business Service Center, things like that. So it's not a scam. But you probably will get something for your money. But is it, again, the most effective or efficient use of your money? The jury's out. I'd be skeptical.
Brent, you said Canada Business. Sorry, what's the other one called? Canada what? Canada Business Center?
The Canada Business, it used to be called Canada Newfoundland Labrador Business Service Center. Now I think it's Canada Business Network.
Network. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you do a Google search, so Google again,
Yeah.
it's fairly good and reliable. So Canada Business Network, there's a yeah, they've got an office in St. John's. I think they're through Industry Canada, and like I said, and they can access all the a lot of the Stats Canada information or industry journals and those types of things, right? So
Another good source, and I don't mean to take you off track here, Brent, but another good
that's
source
good.
is community accounts with government.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
if you're, I went to there looking for how many not-for-profits are in my area, for instance. You know, there's a lot of, you can do provincial searches, you can do regional searches, and it's all tied to like stats, right? So
Yep.
it's legitimate information. And I always found, and I think I went to the labor market reports out of, I don't even know what they're called now, but it used to be Advanced Education, Skills and Labor.
Yeah.
Because I thought if I'm doing a proposal to them and I'm putting their research in it, wouldn't that look pretty good?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And like I said, we deal a lot with tourism businesses. So, you know, from a tourism perspective, right, the exit surveys that are done in the province, that data is available online for free in terms of what people said and where they were going and how much they spent and all that type of stuff. So, and those are just two quick examples, but absolutely, depending on what it is you're doing, there is information out there. Yeah, for sure.
Carol, you said community. Sorry, I'm writing so many things. What was it? Community
Community accounts, which is
accounts?
through, yeah, ACCOUNTS.
Good.
It's through government, and it's essentially a like a stats agency, like a mini
Yeah,
stats agency. You can
that's right.
find
Okay.
you can
It's the
find
online.
household income, how many people, like there's all kinds of criteria in there,
Yeah,
and they've
and
got
it's broken down
tutorials on
by
how to navigate it.
yeah, and it's broken down by zones and regions and communities, and yeah, it's really good tool. Again,
Okay.
keep in mind that the information that's there, it may or may not be dated. So like any database is only as good as the information that's in there. So you know, presenting a proposal in October of 2020 with data that was gathered in
Yeah.
March of 2006. Something is better than nothing, but sometimes it's not a whole lot of help.
Yeah.
So again, you know, the most accurate and up-to-date information that you can get, realizing right when you're dealing with when you're dealing with the census, when you know, there's a lag time, right? So I think the most recent census data is from 2016 or 2018, right? So
Good point.
maybe it's even
In
older
this
than
era, things change on a monthly basis. You can't even
that.
trust something a month ago now.
Absolutely.
Everything is so evolving.
All right, so the next slide I got there is in terms of funding program criteria. So what we're talking about here is the important of when you're asking for funding, it's important to know what the criteria around that funding is going to be. And it's important, like as it says, they're customized. So the proposal that you're going to present to group A and the proposal that you're going to present to group C or agency B or charitable organization D is not going to be identical. It's very important to customize it. I get it all the time, proposals that come in for funding, and it's the same proposal. In fact, I've gotten it that the letter has been, they just send me the proposal that they sent to ACOA, and you know, and then they call me up and say, how's my proposal going? I said, I'm not sure. You sent something to ACOA and you copied me on it, but I haven't actually received a proposal from you at this point. So it's important because again, every organization is going to have different criteria, different application form, different format, all that kind of stuff. And again, in most cases, it's probably 90% the same, but it's the 10% that is going to be different or unique that is going to it's going to show the person who's receiving it how much attention you've paid to the process. So it's really important that you know it's tailored to the reader so that they they understand that you're on top of your game. In terms of persuasion, so again, you're trying to convince somebody that here's a problem and here's the solution to the problem and here's why I can help figure out that solution and implement that solution. And again, like I said, the audience is really important to know who you're writing for. As I said, every program is going to be unique in terms of what costs are eligible and timelines and date of acceptance for programs and percentage of coverages and all the details. Again, from a government perspective, that's That's the nitty gritty stuff that most of that stuff is going to be written in the application or in the proposal format, the documents that you're going to be reviewing before you prepare. So it's important that you're submitting the right proposal to the right audience, the right member. Partnering. So partnering, as I mentioned, we often get proposals that have multiple sources of funding. So from from our perspective, they're looking for funding from the province, from the federal agencies, COA or whatever the case may be, or if it's a particular industry group. So if it's a farmer, then they're looking for funding from Farm Credit Canada, for example. So partnering is not a bad thing to do from a funding perspective, in that it allows each group to kind of share the risk, if you will. And like I said, because each program is going to be somewhat unique and different, there are probably things that I can't fund that another group or organization can fund, or portions of it. So having those, the same project being submitted to multiple groups is not a bad thing. We do talk to each other, contrary to what people think. If you submit something to me and something to a COA, then yeah, I'm going to have a discussion with the COA about your application. That's pretty standard. The other side of partnering is not only in terms of getting multiple, funding from multiple sources, is also can multiple groups come together to partner to solve the same problem? So instead of competing for the limited dollars that might exist, does it make sense for for two groups, for two businesses to enter a joint partnership, for two not-for-profits two or more to come together and kind of say, this is our skill set and this is our clientele, and the other groups, this is their skill set and this is their clientele, and together we can achieve more by working together.
I have a poll for that.
Right. What a good segue. Go ahead, Carol.
I'm excited now. I'm learning polls. All right. So if everyone could just jump on, and you should have a poll up in front of you. Have you considered partnering with another organization on a proposal? And if
what do you mean by that? If you consider partnering with another organization or proposal, you mean just in my
so maybe you and I, as two business people, come together and we write a proposal for funding from one organization that we're going to use together.
Got you. Oh, okay.
Yep, partnerships, joint ventures, consortiums. There's all kinds of different formats and ways to do that type of thing.
Okay, good to know. Jeez, so happy
Okay.
I'm in here today.
All right, now I'm going to close and I'm going to share. There you go.
Yeah.
So we've got a yes and we've got it never occurred to me for 2/3 of the folks. So
okay.
That was something that Brent and I talked about before we came on here. I'll just hide that and bring that back to you. So I had an example that I was talking to Brent about. I was hired by two organizations last year to do a needs assessment for them, but it was two different not-for-profits that applied for funding together in order to hire me. And so that's kind of why I had asked Brent about this piece. So rather than both of them competing for the same funding, they could both benefit from the research that they had asked me to do, and so they jointly applied for it. So I worked for two agencies at the same time.
Yep, it's also a really good strategy too. Sometimes with government tenders, so when you go looking for at the government tenders, both provincial and federal, you'll see that projects are what they call bundled, so that they post the project that they're looking for people to provide support with, and it's massive, huge, all kinds of deliverables that, unless you're a large multinational firm, you probably can't deliver on everything. But that's not to say you can't deliver on a part of that. So, and the governments or agencies will bundle those projects, because then they're dealing with one tender and one set of review and all that type of thing. So it's easier for them, but it's not necessarily easier for the people that are bidding on those projects. So we often see companies that will come together to, if it's a proposal, like, if you're a consultant that deals with HR consulting, then you can provide that, and then you partner with someone else who does the accounting side of the consulting or whatever. Again, that's just an example. So it's a real effective way to get access to projects that would probably be outside the scope or the ability of one group or organization, but can probably be accomplished by partnering with the right partner. And I purposely put in the words right partner because not all partnerships are good partnerships. So it's important that, and again, we could talk a full day about partnering and how to do it and how not to do it and all that type of stuff. But there,
I'm
there is a bit.
Sorry, I'm going to go out on a limb. And Shanna, were you the one that has considered partnering?
Yes.
Can you give us a little bit about what it was or how you went about it?
Well, I guess essentially I am sort of the result of a partnership right now.
Absolutely.
So
Okay.
between the St. John's Board of Trade and the Greater Corner Brook Board of Trade, like that's kind of how
Right.
it was put through. But I mean, I've seen it work, like the how Welcome NL had the multiple groups involved, and as anyone who knows me on this call knows how much I love partnerships, and I think they work really well. So yeah, I'm super into partnering.
Excellent. Good. All right, so now we'll quickly touch on, I guess, some of the meat of it. And again, keep in mind that this is touching the treetops, and this is normally when we get into kind of after we've had our lunch at the full day session to talk about some of the formatting. So formatting is more than just while it is important to, the layout and the look of it, it's more than that. It's not just the aesthetics. It's about flow and making sure that the information is easy to find, and even the writing style, if you will. And it shows that you've kind of done your homework, and it leads to that professionalism, that credibility. So if your proposal that you submit is full of typos and spelling errors and can't find the information, and you're talking about something on page 6 and the charts aren't there, or if it's just hard to read, hard to follow the flow, can't comprehend what's going on, while it might be brilliant and you might solve all the world's problems, it's not going to be perceived as such, and you're probably not going to get a chance to get funded for that. So that proposal, that formatting, while it seems a little superficial, it is really important. If there's 6 proposals on my desk, human nature is that you're going to read the easier ones first. And if you're in a situation where you've got a limited budget, a limited pot of funds, and you might just shoot yourself in the foot by not making it easy to read or making it clear, because the other projects might get funded when the pot of funds might run out before yours even gets looked at, because yours was more challenging, or wasn't as easy to read, or it shows you didn't put enough care into it, just from the professionalism or credibility, those types of things, right? So it's really important to put your best foot forward. The old adage, you get one chance to make a first impression, especially if you're a new group or you've not dealt with that funding agency before. It's really important to kind of I'm a scout leader, so one of the things we say with our cubs is to do your best. Dib dib dib, and so it's really important that you do your best in all things, especially proposal writing when you're looking for funding. I felt someone was going to ask a question. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, would you recommend the same layout as a business plan? I recently had to do one, and you have a table of contents, and then you just follow each page with a table of contents, and just so it's flowed really nice and easily, and it got approved pretty quick. So would you recommend something like that?
Potentially, unless there is a set of criteria in terms of how it should look. So again, some programs that you're going to apply for, some agencies, some groups, some charitable groups, whatever, when with the application, they're actually going to provide you with a proposal format. Okay. Step by step, this is what we want covered. So unless that's if that's provided, then I would advise to kind of follow that format. Yes. If in the absence of that clear direction of what they want it to look like, then yeah, whatever works for you to, again, make sure that you've convinced the reader in a clear, concise, well thought out, well presented format. And again, if that happens to be a business plan, if that's suitable for the occasion, yeah, then that's a good way to do it. Like I said, just make sure that you're answering the question. So sometimes we will get, so for example, with one of our funding programs, with our business investment fund, which is our loan program, on our application, we've got a very clear format of what we want included in that proposal. Box 16 on page 7 tells you, here's the things we need addressed. And if someone just submits a business plan and that only answers 50% of those questions, then I've got to go back and ask for more information, and it takes longer. And it also says, you know what, you didn't even read what it is that we're looking for. So the answer, I guess, the long answer to your question is that could be a possible suitable format, but it's important to like I said, to know what it is that your audience wants.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Oh, no problem. Length of the business or the proposal. A lot of people say, how long should it be? And I guess I like nursery rhymes, because I always say it's like Goldilocks. It needs to be as long as it needs to be. There is no right answer. If you're looking for, like I said, if it's a very simple project with a small budget, then 5 or 10 pages is probably plenty. If you're looking to build a hospital, yeah, then 5 or 10 pages is probably not going to cut it. And obviously those would be the two extremes, but yeah, it needs to be clear, concise. Like I said, I'm careful when I tell potential clients this. There is no such thing as too much information now, and then I always caveat with, but sometimes there is. But it's better to provide more than less, as long as it's easy to read and understand. And that kind of gets down to one of the other bullets a little further down, appendices, and I'll jump on those in just a second. So the long and the short answer of how long or short should it be is it depends on the situation, but it should be, as I say, focused, concise, and clear. Like I said, with the layout, that is about the look and the aesthetics, but it also, like I said, leads to the ability to be comprehended and the pleasure in reading it. So like I said, simple things like spacing and fonts, and it's like when you were in high school and you had to write 6-page report, changing the font to size 40 when you've only got 2 pages of information, spreading that out over 4 pages, people see through that, obviously. The writing side of it, again, proper grammar. And I always feel like such a hypocrite when I say the next line: avoid jargon and buzzwords and acronyms, because within government, we kind of live and survive on TFLAs, as I like to call them, which are 2 to 5 letter acronyms. So as much as you can, or if if that's the industry that you're in, and if buzzwords and jargon and technical and acronyms are important, then throw in an appendices or a little glossary or a little dictionary, if you will, about what those things mean, and put it in right up front so that people can be clear and not be confused as they're writing through it. Sequence, again, clear, logical, flows through the story, what it is you're going to do, how you're going to do it. The title page, again, that seems really, really obvious, but we've often get projects come in that don't have, there's no date on it, or there's no contact information, or, they don't put in a phone number or the name of the project, the liaison that you're going to be dealing with. Again, simple stuff, but really, really important. Table of contents. Like I said, that just makes it easy for the reader, but also makes it easy for the writer to make sure that you've got everything in a logical, structured order, and that you haven't missed anything. And especially when you're dealing with, again, as documents start to get longer and bigger, having that table of contents, being able to jump around makes it easier. The appendices, like I said, they're really important. I love appendices in the sense that it's a great place to put all that stuff that you're not sure. It's good information, but it doesn't really fit neatly and tidily in the body of what it is you're writing. Or it's a good place to put in the charts or the notes or the studies or whatever the case may be, depending on what you're doing, images or pictures and those types of things. So appendices are great place to put that. So you can then submit, your proposal, which is 25 pages, and then attach, the appendices, which is, if it's 100 pages, and then I can refer to it as needed or as necessary. Footnoting and referencing. So again, sometimes that's more academic, but if you are, like I said, if you're quoting things, put in a source of where it came from, especially if you're trying to make the argument with the stats or with the data. Again, we want to have some sense of where it came from, that it comes from a legitimate source as opposed to the buys on Friday night. People say, well, particulars that need to be the APA or the we're not. It's not an academic paper that you're writing, and again, there's a full different set of rules around all that stuff. But what I'm looking for is just that the data that you're coming up with is real, and it's as accurate or not accurate, as timely as it can be. It's like quoting statistics from 2007 is not going to hold as much weight as something more current. Any questions on any of that? And maybe that'll lead to some discussion. I've only got a couple slides left here. So the key components of a proposal. So keeping in mind that these wouldn't necessarily fit all situations. So this is kind of the Santa's list of what you would want to include. But a letter of transmittal, just a formal letter introducing yourself, your company, your organization, and that you're formally submitting a proposal. If you're replying to a tender or whatever the case may be. Sometimes those include it, sometimes they're not. You don't see them as much as you used to once upon a time. Title page, again, the title of the proposal, contact information, all that's straightforward stuff. Executive summary is really important. And it's typically the last thing you should write, but it's the first thing or one of the first things you should see in your proposal. But it's basically, as it implies, a summary of what's in the proposal. So it touches on each of the main categories or each main pieces of information, but in a summarized, quick and easy, easier to digest format. Introduction, background. So that kind of explains who your organization is, why you're suited to it, what you've done previously. It allows the reader to know who you are and what you've done in the past and why you're the right person or right organization to do it moving forward. Purpose and objectives would be kind of addressing what the challenges are and what it is you're hoping to accomplish. Description of your project activity would be what you're going to do in order to meet those objectives and purposes. Organizational structure can sometimes be important, again, depending on when you're dealing with larger projects or larger organizations, kind of who's responsible for what, the project, the team that's going to be dealing with it and what their roles and responsibilities are. Again, that can be valuable or insightful. Again, seems pretty obvious, but I've actually have a proposal on my desk as we speak that was submitted 3 weeks ago for someone looking for funding that submitted it and didn't include a budget. They just said, I want X number of dollars, but they didn't explain how they came up with that number or what they were going to spend that money on. So submitted without a budget. And again, so not a whole lot I can do with it. I went back and asked them, can you break that down for me a little bit, please? And 3 weeks later, and I still haven't got anything back. So I guess they're working on it, or maybe they realize that they're bigger than they thought. Doing a good proposal is a little more work than they thought.
I mean, you just don't give out $1 million at a time, Brent?
Not this week. Compatibility and benefits, that's in terms of, again, making sure that what it is that you're doing, how it fits in with your strategic plan, or how it aligns with government priorities, or what are the benefits in doing this project. Monitoring and evaluation is an important one that often gets overlooked. To me, and again, in its simplest form, I like to break things down in its simplest form. Monitoring and evaluation is, are we on track? Are we, how are we going to know that we're where we want to be? And the evaluation is, are we on the right track? So again, you can be moving forward, but if you're moving towards the edge of a cliff, you might want to back up and slow down and kind of, to use a buzzword, you might want to pivot. That's the latest buzzword that we keep hearing everywhere. Especially with the pandemic, a lot of pivoting has happened. So that's the importance of monitoring and evaluations. Are we on track, and are we on the right track? Are we moving in the direction that we, said we were going to do to accomplish our goals? So
in your proposal, Brent, you're outlining how you're going to do that?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what you're saying? Yeah. So it's not the actual evaluation, but this is how we're going to approach it. Yeah. Okay.
Right. Yeah. At 6 months, at 1 year, and again, that might tie in directly to what the criteria for the proposal. Again, if it's a government tender, that's something that you're probably going to have to address. What is our formal monitoring? What is our evaluation plan? All that kind of thing, right? If you're doing research, yeah, that's sometimes that's standard stuff. But like I said, sometimes that gets missed too.
Okay.
So it is an important one. Like I said, in dependencies, that's where you can put in a lot of that extra information. Sometimes we'll see like letters of support. It's a good spot to put dependencies. You know, if you're doing a project in the community, so if you get, you know, a letter of support from other groups in the community. One example, which again doesn't obviously fit every case, but one of the criteria obviously for our programs is competitive impact. So we can't help or be seen to help something that's going to have a negative impact on an existing competitor. So in one case, we had a company that was looking to start up something, and they actually went and got a letter of support from what would be perceived as their competitor. And the competitor basically said, love to see this business in this area, because when we reach capacity, when we've got wait lists, we'd much rather refer them to someone else in the area as opposed to sending that customer at a region. So again, they were looking at it from big, you know, big regional perspective, and good on them, because they could have easily said, nope, we don't want them around. But that would be a classic case of a letter of support. Yeah, absolutely. So they address that competitive impact issue by talking to the competition.
And while it wasn't partnering with them as well, right?
Yeah, I can say while it wasn't a formal partnership, it was a good demonstration of moving in the right direction. So
I think you'd see that a lot in the certain industries like the craft brewing industry. You know, they've learned that in actual fact, more of them in an area means that people will come and kind of do a tour of the area. You know, kind of helps out each other.
Craft brewers are they're very much a community. Yeah, absolutely. And while they are technically, I guess, in competition with each other, they don't see it that way. Their competition is Labatt's and Molson's and the big beer manufacturers. Yeah, it is very much a community. Yes, they're a bit of a unique bunch in a lot of respects.
Yeah, they are, but I love it. I love watching that industry grow in partnership, because so many industries, it's, you know, I'm not going to do anything that's going to help somebody else, and they don't see the bigger picture of building the whole industry versus their own little tiny share, right?
Yeah. So this is the last slide I have. My name, phone number, email. This, I guess, is where we get into the discussion, the questions. That took way longer than I thought it was going to. Hopefully it wasn't too much. I do see
no, it was all good.
Excellent.
So I have one last question I'm going to throw up, and this is more
another poll
for you, Brent.
Go ahead.
Would you be interested in attending a one-day workshop on proposal writing? And I know Brent is looking, you know, hopefully at some point getting back in person and doing some of these things, because obviously I can really see, Brent, from just the teaser piece you've given us of how hands-on this could really be. So you're right. I think this would be really nice to be together. So it looks like everyone's answered. And not surprising, you have 100% yes.
There we go. Fabulous.
Yeah.
Yeah, and as Carol said, I don't know when we're going to offer that again. I guess as a little bit of background information, so our community capacity building program through our department, which I think is still through our department again, we're going through some changes, is the CCB, again, to use an acronym, our community capacity building program is, it's a series of modules that are available for organizations, not-for-profit groups, those that are engaged in economic development in some capacity, to better manage and govern and organize and run themselves. So proposal writing is one of the modules within that suite of tools that are there. They are available online. Anybody can use them. But like I said, you do need to meet certain criteria in order to access some of the funding that would be available with that program. So my little sales
and that's
pitch.
called community capital. Is that what you said?
Community capacity building.
Capacity building. And that's, if I Google that, I'll find that?
You should be able to Google that and find that, yeah.
Excellent.
Right now, I couldn't even tell you whose webpage it's on. I think it's probably under the tourism, culture, arts, and recreation page, but it should be over an industry, energy, and technology page. It's trying times.
So many recent changes.
So many recent changes, yeah, absolutely.
Well, that program has put a fair bit of money in my pocket, as my clients have gone after the funding to be able to hire me. So it's certainly out there.
Yeah, the key with any funding from our department is the linkage to economic development. Again, not to say that any business that's providing service or retail or any of those types of things is not important. It's not good. It just may not fit the mandate of the department in terms of what it is that we're doing. So, but like I said, especially with the CCB modules, they're online. People can download them. People can use them. If you're the SPCA, which is a great organization, not a real strong link to economic development. So if the SPCA applied for funding for that program, they probably wouldn't get approved. But that's not to say that they couldn't download and access the modules and the slideshows and the resource materials that's available there and use it themselves. But you wouldn't necessarily get access to a facilitator to come in and do that or pay for lunch or meeting room. And like I said, with COVID, I don't even know where any of that stuff stands anymore. I don't even know if we're allowed to do in-person training anymore.
Yeah,
probably not for the next little while. Hopefully,
probably not for the next little while. Yeah.
Hopefully to come back by the springtime. Let's hope.
And maybe if you can learn to drive a car online, then maybe we can learn how to strategic plan and write proposals online too. so that's really encouraging to hear that.
Yeah.
All right, I'm just going to stop the recording here, folks, and then we're going to open it up for a little bit more discussion, and we'll do a little bit of networking before we finish off here. So first off, thank you, Brent. Fabulous teaser. I know it's got me thinking about a few things that I didn't think of, and I'm sure others are saying the same. So I do really appreciate you joining us today.
No problem.
And I'm gonna stop it there.